Hey guys, I'm here with Kali Davis. This is one of the athletes I've trained, and we're going to be talking a little bit about his fitness journey and what we did working with me to really get him ready for his football journey at the College of DuPage and moving on past that JUCO to become really the best Division I football player that he can be. So, Kali, we were working together about 15 weeks.
Yep.
We did some online, a lot of in person.
Yeah.
And with that, where do you feel like you were at before training with me?
Yeah. Where I felt like I was at before, like obviously with like my history of injuries, like my sophomore, junior season, like the biggest thing that I felt, like going into it, like I felt I was training more to just be a lifter rather than to actually be a football player. And so like I really didn't know like the science behind what I was doing. I wasn't doing things like properly. I wasn't recovering properly, adding a whole bunch of stuff to like keep me healthy, like through lifting. And so I'd say those are probably like my biggest things that like I lacked before I started training, like
Yeah.
with you.
I got you. That was a big thing, right? You kind of came in. We had trained before, both of us when we were a little younger, and we worked hard, but we didn't do
Yeah,
like any
worked
like
hard, but it wasn't no
it wasn't
structure
smart.
to it.
There was no structure. It
Yeah.
wasn't smart by any means. And then really when we kind of started working under this triphasic methodology, and for both of us, really that's kind of what stepped it up.
Yeah.
Working through the phase of the eccentric, the isometric, and concentric.
Most definitely.
Especially right away with that eccentric for both of us. Like we both had injury histories. You especially a lot of surgeries. But that eccentric builds a ton of muscle capacity that works early. So as you go through the block, you're staying healthy and you have a proper foundation to be explosive and end up becoming that best athlete you can be. And as we work through it, obviously we get into the isometric phase, which is the next phase of this triphasic methodology. And I want to mention it's not something I made up, right? It's based on my experience at IMG, and a lot of Division I Power 4 programs use this year-round to develop their athletes. With that isometric phase, it's working isometrics like a pause in a movement, and that's building more capacity, but starting to transition into that power and speed development that's obviously going to translate to your sport, not necessarily just becoming a good lifter. And with that, Kali, how would you say when we work through these phases, like, how would you say it's different from a regular training program where you're kind of doing the same thing every week?
Yeah, I would say like I think the biggest thing that I said was different about like this compared to just like a standard training program was how like personalized it was like to the athlete itself. Like obviously when you training, which is like a training, let's say like at school, like at an institution, they're training all sorts of different athletes. So they're training football, basketball, volleyball, and like we're pretty much all doing the same thing. But with this, like with the program that like we had worked with, this is specifically to be a football player, specifically to be an explosive defensive lineman. And so every single like little thing I was doing was catered directly towards my first step, my strike, my lockout, like all those different things. And so I'd say those were probably the most beneficial things that came out like that triphasic training.
In terms of your athletic development, what would you say was the benefits with using this and working with me?
Yeah, I think pretty much in every area, I think I developed athletically. With our like all the conditioning that we did, definitely that. Like my footwork, my foot speed, my recovery times, like pretty much just all across the board. Like especially in like in the weight room, recovering a lot faster in between sets, like working that fast pace with like not a lot of break in between, translated really really well to the field when we're going rep after rep after rep, especially in a big time game. Obviously, we haven't got to that point yet, but just through going through these first couple weeks of practice at DuPage, it's been very noticeable.
Yeah, no doubt. For both of us, we're heading into our freshman year. I'm at Furman. He's at College of DuPage. And the big thing is, compared to high school, the training's fast-paced. And I felt we prepared very well for it. And with the conditioning we did, assault bike was terrible. And that was one of our staples all summer, all offseason, to really give us that conditioning base, that aerobic base to build on. So when we're in season, right, we're the best shape. We're the athlete that's in the best shape on the field. For myself with this conditioning, we ran through conditioning at Furman, and the stuff I do with my athletes, with him, it's harder than any conditioning I've done in the 5 weeks of summer training I did at Furman, right? We're doing something right around here, and it's translated to those 5 weeks where I was constantly leading the pack in terms of that conditioning piece, which obviously is going to be very important coming into a long season where there's a lot of fast pace going on with that. Then in terms of rounding things out with Kali, we worked through a concentric phase and then a peaking phase. A concentric still being very muscle building, pulling everything together into that power. Then with that peaking, we're lowering the percentages, increasing the velocity on the barbell to really maximize all that strength that we took and turn it into athleticism, turn it into actual power, really, because if you can squat 600 pounds, but you run a 5.5 40, really what's the point? And that's a big thing I like to emphasize with my athletes is pulling it all together with that peaking phase. So how would you say those last two phases end up like contributing to how you're doing at this point?
Yeah, I think exactly like you said, like being able to pull all that strength together, like and actually utilize and showcase like all the things that we've gained, like throughout those first however many, I think like 8 to 12 weeks of training, and then obviously like from the end of my senior season to now, I put on about 25, 30 pounds as we had showed in that the testimonial video. And
My guy gained 20 pounds and went from barely hitting 315 to repping it for 5, all in less than 3 months. He healed his chronic foot and shoulder injuries. Now he's saying this is the most athletic he's ever felt, and it's got him moving like this on the field. So he's going to be ready to dominate when he gets to college and fall.
I think being able to not only keep putting on weight, but keep putting on athleticism with it. Because like you said, you can move as much heavy weight as you want, but if it's still slow, if it doesn't translate, it does nothing for you as an athlete. And so I think putting those two components together, just again, I know I'm being repetitive, but like we said, like really just moving the heavyweight fast and being able to showcase it in an athletic way, I think that was probably like the biggest thing.
No doubt. I feel, especially in the high school level, there's, at least in Wisconsin, there isn't a ton of places that are really doing it right. You can say other states know how to do it better, but being able to working with me, right, if you're in a situation where your school isn't doing things right, you don't have any training knowledge, I'm able to put you in position, build a program and training and coaching you through something specifically for your goals to really have success like Kali did. It by no means is going to be easy. I've never told any one of my athletes that working with me is going to be easy by any means, but the results are here to show for. It's not just Kali. I have tons of other athletes working with me who've trusted me to turn them into that next level athlete that they've always needed so they can really dominate in their individual sport. I had a foot surgery in fall.
Yep.
And how did we like end up working through that together with you once we got to work in spring?
Yeah, so definitely, I think probably one of the biggest things, and I went through it with PT, like obviously all like the ankle mobility and like the strengthening and stuff like that, but those were just kind of like baseline things. Those were like static things. But I think what has definitely helped it the most was putting like a speed component to it. So like doing things like mobily, all the things that we did, like on the field, whether it be like with our isometrics or like just working on very, very like tedious things on the wall with the bands and stuff like that. I think adding a mobility aspect, because obviously in football, you're never static, you're never standing still. And so being able to translate physical therapy into something athletic and actually putting it to like a game speed situation, like however fast we're doing things or whatever we're doing, I think that was probably the most beneficial thing that I got out of this, because I still was having issues with my foot, like the left side, because I had a Lisfranc Frank injury, and so my 3 metatarsals, those are your foot bones. My first like 3, so my big toe, and then the 2 other ones after that were all like out of whack. Those all had to get realigned, and so the muscles and like ligaments between them were all like they were pretty much non-functional for those first couple months after surgery. And then I still had some underdevelopment that showed in the season. Like my first step really wasn't as great as I thought it should be. But working on all those things that we worked on, like it helped bring my first step back, and it was very evident at this first week of camp. My endurance, like my resilience, especially my injury resilience. I've rolled my ankle probably 100 times in the last 5 months, and I've been perfectly fine. Like it's been really, really good.
Yeah, like obviously physical therapy, I would say with most athletes, like it works to get you back to a point where you can walk and jog.
Yeah,
right?
a baseline.
When you need to perform like on the field, like a football D lineman, right? He's bending that edge, trying to sack the QB. Your foot's going to be in really extreme angles and something in physical therapy. Most of the time, you're not even touching. Where when you're working with me, we look into those details to make sure every single aspect of your body is really in tip-top condition, because I don't want you to step on the field having doubts about, oh, is my foot going to hold up? Oh, is my shoulder injury, is that going to cause me problems? No, I don't want that one bit. So we're going to work through those injuries, those specific nagging things to bring them up to really where they should be, and then push those boundaries from there.
I think another thing I want to mention too about all this is like the emphasis on field work, because as we had said way back in the beginning, we're trained to be athletes, not to be lifters. And I think the part about you being like a Division I athlete going through this, obviously as a coach and then as a lifelong friend, like your word is much more credible to me, because I've A, seen the work you've put in, but B, you've done the work to get you to where you're at. Obviously at Furman Division I school, that's great, but understanding that like you've walked this walk yourself, and not even like walked it in the past, like you're taking your athletes with you on this journey as you're entering this next like big phase of your life. And that made it all the more evident to me. Obviously we kept in touch when you were at IMG, and we saw all the things you did there, like as you ramped up your like as you started to ramp up your training, because obviously, like we had said earlier, our training wasn't super smart when we were young. But when you went out to Florida, ramping up that training, seeing how much emphasis we're putting on field work, and so when we incorporated that into our training program and making that pretty much the centerpiece of our training, because we're football players at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so whether it be before, after, weekend days, we're not really lifting, just putting an emphasis on fine tuning every detail in the field, from first step to bending the corner to hands, all that stuff. I thought was you did an amazing job setting all that up.
For sure. I mean, it was a lot, right? We went from younger, we trained hard, we didn't know anything. But as not even just me, both of us started to understand this training more. I was able to guide you through it. You were able to teach me things, especially about that D-line, that field work.
Yeah.
We ended up building into something, right, where we're both getting an opportunity to play in college. And obviously for you, College of DuPage is a huge stepping stone.
Yeah.
That you're taking that 1 or 2 years there to really push you to that D1 level that we know you're capable of.
Yeah.
Wrapping this up a little bit, Kali, do you have any last thoughts, or if there's any people who are on the edge about training with me, do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, definitely. I think people who are on the edge about the training, just take into account really what he's saying and really what he's showing you. Like, obviously, being my friend, it could be possibly a biased example, but look at all the other people from all across the country that he's been training that have had the same results as me, or obviously not identical, but they've performed very, very well in their sport. They've seen improvements. They've seen gains. This kid knows what he's talking about. He's put in hundreds of hours of work to get to where he's at now. And this ain't, like we said before, this ain't just some fat dude on the internet telling you do this, do that, do X, Y, and Z. This is a kid who's going and actively playing Division I football, and we have gone from what he was at his freshman year to now. It's so evident that what he's doing, what he's saying, actually has real benefits to it. And so definitely anybody who's on the edge, just look at what he's truly saying, take the time to see what he's saying, and then look at the evidence. And I'd say it's pretty much evident that training with Jacob would be a smart decision for your future.
And with that, if you are ready to take action, what I will do for you, I'm going to put a Calendly link down in the description. All you have to do is fill that out, right? There's going to be a couple questions to make sure you're qualified to work with me and see if it's going to be the right fit. Then we'll hop on a 30-minute chat on the phone, and we can really get this training started for you to take your athletic development to the next level. Like Kali, be that next success of working with me, and for whatever your sport that's coming up is going to be ready for you to dominate on the field.